Gurudev, and thank you for joining us today. Today, again, we have with us an art of living expert and an officer of the Vedic Dharma Sansthan. So, let's continue our discussion on day 8 or part 8 of You and the Universe. So, Gurudev speaks about people becoming sad when things don't go their way, like not finding a partner or a job. What is the deeper meaning behind the sadness? Gurudev beautifully points out that sadness is not a natural state, it is self created. When our desires are unfulfilled, we start generating vibrations of lack and misery. This sadness doesn't solve the issue, it only deepens it. Energy attracts energy. If you radiate sadness, you ripple possibilities. This is a subtle law of attraction. Indeed, the Vedas say, Yad bhavam tad bhavati. As you feel, so you become. When the inner field is polluted with grief or self pity, the prana flow reduces, the tejas or radiance fades. As Gurudev illustrates, within minutes, one can shift from grief to gratitude, and the entire atmosphere changes. Divine grace operates instantly when the mind awakens. Now, Gurudev transformed a sad person within minutes from tears to smile. How is that transformation possible so quickly? It is the power of pure consciousness. When a master's presence touches you, the heaviness in the energy body melts. Gurudev doesn't merely give advice, his presence alters your pranic field. In less than 3 minutes, the person's mind reconnects to joy. This is what happens when one moves from the limited ego to awareness. In Vedic understanding, this is Chaitanya Shakti, the living energy of the divine. The Sadguru Tattva acts like a spiritual catalyst. Just as sunlight dispels darkness instantly, the Gurudev's grace and Guru's grace removes sorrow in moments. It's not psychological persuasion, it's spiritual transmission. Now, why does Gurudev emphasize that sadness ripples opportunities? Because sadness is a contraction of consciousness. When you are low, you send signals of I lack. The universe mirrors that back, so you keep attracting more situations of lack. Gurudev says, be happy first and success follows. The Rig Veda describes this through the concept of Rita, the cosmic order. When one's mind vibrates with harmony, once the external world aligns, sadness breaks Rita because it disturbs the rhythm of energy. Only a joyful mind can manifest the divine order. Now, Gurudev said, who would like to be with someone who is so sad? How does this apply to relationships and partnerships? Relationships thrive on energy exchange. If you are heavy and complaining, others feel drained. Joy, laughter, and lightness create attraction. Gurudev often says, you are not loved because you are beautiful. You are beautiful because you are loved. The vibration of love is magnetic. In Manusmriti and Vedic Grahastha Dharma, harmony between partners is seen as sacred. A sad person loses ojas, which is the subtle essence that sustains the love. Hence, spiritual practices are meant to keep one's ojas high. When the inner glow is strong, companionship comes naturally. Now, Gurudev says that happiness attracts prosperity. Can this be scientifically explained? Absolutely. Neuroscience shows that positive emotions release endorphins and serotonin, improving clarity and creativity. This directly enhances decision making and interpersonal skills, leading to success. Happiness increases coherence in the brain waves, aligning thoughts and actions. Vedic sciences mirror this through Ayurveda and Jyotisha. The moment you shift your inner vibration, even planetary influences appear favorable. The rishis knew that ananda or bliss is real wealth. From ananda, everything flows: the health, the career, and spiritual progress. Now, Gurudev mentions that sadness and anger are of no use. Why do humans still indulge in them? Because we identify with emotions, we think sadness is me. Gurudev teaches emotions are like clouds and you are the sky. Once you realize this, emotions lose grip. People indulge in sadness because it subconsciously gives identity or sympathy, but awareness dissolves it. In Bhagavad Gita, Lord Krishna tells Arjuna, Ashocyan anva shochastvam. You grieve for what is not worthy of grief. Ignorance or avidya makes one cling to pain. Knowledge or vidya frees. That's why satsang, sadhana, and seva are vital. They cleanse the subtle mind. Now, how can one manifest knowledge as Gurudev advises? Knowledge should not remain intellectual. When you live it through daily meditation, breathwork, and awareness, it manifests as wisdom. Manifestation means embodying joy, patience, and compassion. The knowledge becomes practical intelligence. The Vedas call this the Jnana Yoga. Manifested knowledge is pragya, the direct experience. A scholar may know scriptures, but only the realized one lives them. Manifestation happens when jnana, bhakti, and karma unite. Now, Gurudev says, keep up your energy, be joyful, then things will fall in place. How does one maintain high energy? Through daily sadhana, the Sudarshan Kriya, pranayama, meditation, and proper rest, and seva, these practices recharge the prana battery. High energy brings enthusiasm and resilience. In the Vedic tradition, morning Agnihotra, Sandhya Vandam, and mantra chanting maintain pranic Agni. They align and realign body rhythms with cosmic cycles. This sustains energy to the day and purifies subtle vibrations. Now, Gurudev connects emotional states with the professional success. How are the two linked? Success is 80% inner attitude and 20% external skill. A calm and positive mind makes better choices. Gurudev often says, don't work for happiness, work from happiness. That inner shift changes everything. In Arthashastra, Chanakya also emphasizes mental stability as a foundation of wealth creation. Even ancient kings perform meditations before major decisions. Emotional mastery leads to material success. Now, Gurudev says, when you leave that place, nobody will do business with you. What is the message here? Jagadev, if you bring negativity into an environment, people feel uncomfortable. Business is built on trust and positive vibration. Gurudev's point is people don't buy your product, they buy your energy. Vedas call this Satya, the integrity of vibration. A person radiating harmony becomes a center of attraction, and cultivating inner peace is a spiritual as well as economic principle. Now, how does one shift instantly from sadness to joy as Gurudev demonstrated? By dropping resistance, the mind is stuck in why me. When you surrender, energy flows again. Gurudev says laughter or one glance dissolves resistance. It's the power of total acceptance. The Upanishads say, Ananda Brahma, Brahman is bliss. When the Guru awakens remembrance of this truth, sadness cannot remain. It's like switching on the light, darkness vanishes. The Gurudev mentions defend anything that happens. How should we interpret this? It means stop justifying your sadness or blaming others. Accept life as it is. Defend your peace, not your misery. Exactly, Krishna and the Shama or the forgiveness and Titiksha or endurance are Vedic virtues. When you defend your equanimity, you become unshakable. The external world loses its power over your happiness. Now, Gurudev touches upon confusion in modern education about gender and identity. What is the Vedic view? Jagdeep Gurudev points out that when we overemphasize labels, the man, the woman, etc., we create division. True education should awaken awareness, not confusion. Spirituality teaches that beyond gender, we are pure consciousness. In Vedic Darshana, Purusha and Prakriti are principles, not fixed genders. Balance of both energies within leads to completeness. Education should help children see themselves as divine beings first. How can parents help children who face identity confusion? By creating a secure, loving environment, teach them meditation early. When children connect to their inner self, they gain clarity. Naturally, Gurudev often says, don't impose, inspire. Parents should practice Sankalpa Shuddhi, clarity of intention. A home filled with positive vibrations guides the child silently. The Grahastha ashrama is meant to be a mini ashrama where dharma and love coexist. Now, Gurudev humorously says, make fun, wake up. Why does humor have such spiritual significance? Jagadev, because humor dissolves ego, laughter is a spontaneous surrender. Gurudev uses humor to break rigidity. When you laugh, the mind opens, then wisdom can enter. Hasirasa is recognized in Natya Shastra as a divine mood. Even devas rejoice in humor because it is lightness born of detachment. A smile is the simplest sadhana. Now, Gurudev speaks of God judging us. What does that mean in context? He is reminding us not to be judgmental ourselves. When we judge others, we vibrate in duality. God doesn't punish, our own vibrations reflect back as karma. In Vedic Karma Siddhanta, judgment is self experience, consciousness, and consequence. God is pure witness. Gurudev gently cautions be aware of your inner attitude, it shapes destiny. Now, how can spiritual practices help those struggling with loneliness or relationship failures? Through meditation, one realizes they are never truly alone. The divine is always with them. When that connection deepens, dependency on external relationships reduces, and new healthy ones form naturally. In rituals like Anjaneya Homam or Parvati Parmeshwara Puja, the purpose is to harmonize Shiva Shakti Tattvas within. This inner union dissolves outer loneliness. Now, Gurudev says nobody knows when it will happen. How should we understand timing and patience in life? Life unfolds by divine timing, not human planning. When the inner state is right, the external alliance, patience is not waiting, it is trusting. Vedas define time as a Kaladeva, a divine force. Everything blooms when its season arrives. So faith and surrender invite auspicious timing or the Shubh Muhurta in all endeavors. How can one keep joy alive amidst uncertainty, as Gurudev advises? True gratitude, daily reflection on blessings keeps the mind elevated. Gurudev says gratitude is a need and the seed of abundance. In Sandhya Vandanam, chanting Om Mitraya Namaha invokes friendliness toward all creation. Such practices align emotions with cosmic joy, sustaining inner happiness. Finally, what is Gurudev's essential message in this segment? That life transforms the moment you stop feeding sadness and start living knowledge. Joy is not an outcome, it's a foundation. From the Vedic standpoint, this is the essence of Sanatana Dharma, aligning inner energy with cosmic order through awareness, gratitude, and surrender. When you live this truth, as Gurudev says, everything falls in place. Jai Gurudev. Now, Gurudev spoke about the confusion in today's world regarding gender identity. How should parents address this with spiritual wisdom? Yeah, Gurudev's insight is deeply compassionate and rooted in the timeless understanding of the human being as a spirit, not just a body. Parents today are often caught between societal trends and natural development. Gurudev reminds us that every human being is composed of both masculine and feminine energies, the Shiva and Shakti within. When a child grows, these energies manifest differently. Rather than forcing rigid identity definitions, parents must create a nurturing environment where the child learns to recognize both aspects, the assertive, the masculine, and the receptive of the feminine. The confusion arises when education and media reduce gender to mere physical appearance or social labeling. Spiritually, gender is transient. It belongs to the body and mind, not the Atman. By guiding children through meditation, pranayama, and stories from the Puranas, they can understand this subtle truth. For example, in the Ardhanarishwara, Lord Shiva, as half man and half woman, lies the perfect symbol of this harmony. Parents should encourage balance, not division. Gurudev's words, "You are spirit, not gender," liberate the child from confusion, offering peace beyond societal constructs. Acceptance of the inner duality brings maturity, confidence, and love for all. Now, Gurudev mentions that inside every man there is a woman, and inside every woman a man. How does this connect with ancient Vedic understanding? This understanding is beautifully expressed in the Vedas and Upanishads. The Purusha, the cosmic masculine, and Prakriti, the cosmic feminine, are inseparable. The Rig Veda declares, the Saubhagyam Yashya Purusha Sa Iva Bhavati. The masculine is fulfilled only through the feminine. Gurudev reinterprets this eternal truth for modern times when he says that a man has a feminine aspect and a woman has a masculine aspect. He is pointing to the psychological and energetic equilibrium that sustains all beings. In yogic anatomy, the Ida Nadi represents feminine cooling energy and the Pingla Nadi represents masculine or the heating energy. Both flow through the subtle system and must be balanced for harmony. When we meditate, these channels merge in the Sushumna, the central channel leading to transcendence beyond gender. Gurudev's wisdom aligns with this. As one grows spiritually, identity expands from body to breath, mind, intellect, and finally to the spirit, which has no gender. When one lives this balance, they become complete, compassionate yet strong, intuitive yet decisive. This Vedic concept offers a solution to today's psychological and societal confusion. Now, Gurudev criticized the tendency of modern psychology to label children prematurely. How does spiritual education differ from this? Yeah, the spiritual education, unlike modern psychology, recognizes the multi layered existence of human beings, the physical, mental, subtle, and causal. Gurudev's observation is profound. When children are told, "You are not male" or "You are not female," it creates identity conflict instead of resolution. The right approach is to help them understand their total being through Sudarshan Kriya, Pranayama, and meditation. Children experience calmness and connection with their inner self, where there is no confusion. Vedic education never enforced gender labels. Instead, it celebrated balance. For example, the Rishi Gargi and Maitri were revered women sages who embodied intellectual strength as so called masculine trait. Similarly, Bhishma Pitama displayed compassion and emotional depth, a feminine quality. True psychology should nurture both, not suppress one. When we reduce the spirit to anatomy, we lose the beauty to divine duality. Gurudev's call is to evolve from the psychological to the spiritual, from labels to liberation. Now, Gurudev said that this physical body and subtle body can differ in gender nature. Can you explain this concept scientifically and spiritually? The statement is remarkably insightful. The physical body is made of matter, it defines biological gender. The subtle body or the Sukshma Sharira, however, is made of prana and mind. It can carry impressions or samskaras from past births, and someone born with a male body may have more feminine emotional tendencies or vice versa. Gurudev points out that this is perfectly normal. In modern terms, this resonates with with the science of psychoneuroendocrinology, which observes that hormone balance and brain wiring influence behavior but do not define identity. Spiritually, the subtle body evolves through lifetimes and may not always synchronize with the physical form immediately. That mismatch is temporary and part of one's karmic learning. Gurudev's wisdom unites both views. He encourages acceptance, compassion, and spiritual growth rather than surgical or artificial modification. The ultimate truth lies in the causal body, which is beyond gender and duality. Realizing this brings peace, removing the need for external validation. Now, Gurudev said the causal body has no gender at all. It is a pure consciousness. How does this redefine human identity? This teaching transforms the entire narrative of identity. The Karan Sharira or causal body is the deepest layer of existence beyond body, mind, and intellect. It holds the seed of consciousness itself, and Gurudev says it has no gender. He invites us to look beyond our biological and social constructs toward pure being, the Atman. In this state, one experiences the Advaita, the non duality, the same consciousness that pervades a man, pervades a woman, an animal, a tree, and the entire universe. This realization dissolves separation and superiority complexes. In Vedic wisdom, even God transcends gender. Lord Vishnu takes feminine forms like Mohini, and Goddess Durga manifests fierce masculine energy in battle. Thus, gender is an instrument, not the essence. Gurudev's guidance is timely. It helps humanity evolve beyond fragmentation. When we meditate, chant, or perform seva, we touch that space of genderless being. From that consciousness, compassion, and clarity arise naturally. Now, Gurudev mentioned that when physical body is male, the subtle body also often expresses feminine qualities and vice versa. How can this be seen as a sign of evolution rather than confusion? Gurudev's observation reflects a refined understanding of spiritual evolution. In yogic science, the subtle body represents the mind, emotions, and pranic energy. When the subtle body's qualities complement the physical form, it indicates balance, a matured soul learning to harmonize dual energies. For instance, a man who expresses tenderness, intuition, and receptivity is not confused, he is integrating the divine feminine or the Shakti. Similarly, a woman displaying decisiveness, courage, and logical clarity reflects her inner Shiva energy. This complementarity is celebrated in Tantra and Vedanta as a dance of opposites. The journey from polarity to unity, confusion only arises when society forces people to choose or reject one side. Gurudev teaches acceptance, allowing both aspects to coexist without guilt or judgment. When meditation deepens, these dualities dissolve into equanimity. In this state, one is neither masculine nor feminine, but purna or complete. That completeness is the goal of evolution. The more the soul evolves, the less rigid the gender identity becomes. The Bhagavad Gita 5.18 echoes as the wise see the same self in a learned man, a cow, an elephant, a dog, or an outcast. Gurudev's words bring this wisdom alive. In a modern context, integration, not suppression, is the path of to spiritual maturity. The Guru said that don't change your body, change your mind. What is the deeper meaning behind this statement? The statement is revolutionary. Gurudev is not rejecting individual experiences, but redirecting the focus inward. The body is an instrument. It undergoes change, decay, and transformation naturally. However, identity lies in the mind, specifically in its conditioning or samskaras. Changing the body may offer temporary relief, but unless the mind is understood and transcended, confusion remains. Gurudev encourages introspection and spiritual sadhana to transform mental patterns. Meditation, Sudarshan Kriya, and Satsang dissolve identity knots. When one realizes, I am not this thought, not this emotion, not this body, I am pure consciousness, the restlessness to alter the external diminishes. He isn't dismissing compassion, rather, he is advocating deeper healing. The Yoga Vasista says the world is as you see it. Change your vision, and the world changes. Thus, changing the mind through awareness, devotion, and breathwork brings alignment between inner and outer reality. Gurudev's wisdom leads from surgery to spirituality, from alteration to realization. Now, how does Gurudev's explanation of a spirit beyond gender align with Advaita Vedanta philosophy? Jagadu, Advaita Vedanta declares Aham Brahmasmi, I am Brahman. The infinite consciousness, Brahman has no attributes, no form, and no gender. Gurudev's teaching mirrors this truth in accessible language. By saying you are spirit, not gender, he dissolves the duality that confines human understanding. In Vedanta, all distinctions are superimpositions of the mind upon the infinite self. Just as waves arise and subside in the ocean, identities appear in consciousness but do not define it. When a seeker experiences this directly through meditation, the boundaries of male, female, rich, poor, east, west disappear. Gurudev translates this into practical spirituality. When you operate from the spirit, compassion replaces comparison. This vision fosters inclusivity without ideology. Everyone becomes part of one divine whole. As Shankaracharya wrote in Atmabodha, as fire is hidden in wood, so is the self hidden in all beings. Gurudev revives that realization in today's language, showing that liberation or moksha begins when we stop identifying with limited forms and rediscover the limitless consciousness within. Now, in Gurudev's view, what role does meditation play in balancing the masculine and feminine energies within? Meditation is the bridge where the dual energies of Shiva, consciousness, and Shakti or energy meet. Gurudev often explains that imbalance in life arises when these energies don't flow harmoniously. When one is too active, aggressive, or restless, masculine energy dominates. When one becomes overly emotional, dependent, or fearful, feminine energy is excessive. Meditation restores rhythm. During deep meditation, breath balances between Ida and Pingala, merging in Sushumna Nadi. That union brings peace, creativity, and stability, the sign of inner harmony. Gurudev's Sudarshan Kriya is a scientific process of balancing these forces through rhythmic breathing. The calmness after Kriya allows the practitioner to function with strength and sensitivity, masculinity, clarity, and with the feminine compassion. In spiritual language, meditation awakens the Ardhanarishvara Tattva, the complete divine within. It doesn't suppress one side but celebrates the dance between both. Over time, this balance reflects in one's relationships, decision making, and service to society. Gurudev's guidance makes the mystical concept of energy balance a lived experience for millions. How does Gurudev's teaching offer an alternative to the increasing psychological distress surrounding gender identity in youth? Gurudev's teaching provides a compassionate middle path, neither denial nor over identification. Modern society often swings between extreme labeling and confused acceptance. Gurudev restores simplicity through spiritual clarity by helping the youth understand that they are not confined to the body but are infinite consciousness. He removes the fear of difference. Once this realization dawns, they stop seeing themselves as victims of biology or society. Through spiritual practices, their nervous system calms, anxiety reduces, and self acceptance deepens. Scientific studies on RFM programs confirm reduced cortisol, increase serotonin, and enhance emotional stability, essential for mental well being. Moreover, Gurudev's approach fosters dialogue rather than division. Instead of making identity a battlefield, it turns it into a journey of self discovery. Youth who experience meditation and seva find purpose beyond labels. They learn that their worth lies not in appearance but in awareness. This message, rooted in ancient wisdom yet expressed in modern understanding, is the most effective antidote to psychological distress. Now, Gurudev highlighted that psychology should advance spirituality. How can modern psychology integrate spirituality effectively? Jagadu, psychology in its true sense is the study of the psyche, the soul, yet over time it has been reduced to behavioral analysis and pharmacological management. Gurudev's call to integrate spirituality reclaims the essence of psychology. When therapists understand meditation, prana, and the subtle nature of consciousness, healing deepens. For instance, in Ayurveda and Vedic psychology, imbalance in the gunas of sattva, rajas, and tamas determines the mental health. Gurudev's programs increase sattva through breath, silence, and knowledge. This complements modern therapy beautifully. Psychologists can use spiritual tools like guided meditation, chanting, and pranayama to help patients reconnect with themselves. The result is not suppression but transformation. Gurudev envisions a future where science and spirituality walk together, medicine healing the body and meditation healing the mind. The synthesis will give rise to a compassionate psychology rooted in universal consciousness rather than cultural confusion. How does the concept of Ardhanarishvara embody Gurudev's teaching about inner gender harmony? The Ardhanarishwara, the form of Lord Shiva united with Goddess Parvati, is not mythology, it's a profound psychological truth. It symbolizes that the masculine and feminine exist in perfect balance within every being. Gurudev often refers to this divine symbol to explain that when the intellect or Shiva and emotion or Shakti merge, life becomes whole. The masculine aspect represents clarity, discipline, and logic, while the feminine symbolizes love, intuition, and creativity. When separated, life becomes fragmented. When united, bliss or ananda flows. Meditation, seva, and devotion awaken this unity. Gurudev brings this wisdom into daily life and we act with firmness yet compassion. We are living Ardhanarishvara when we meditate deeply yet serve joyfully. We are embodying this cosmic balance. Society's gender debates can find resolution in this ancient symbol, a reminder that divinity transcends duality. Now, Gurudev said that gender imbalance at the subtle or psychological level can lead to dissatisfaction and suffering. How can one restore balance through spiritual practice? Gurudev's observation touches the root of many emotional disturbances. When the masculine and feminine energies within us are imbalanced, life feels incomplete. We become either too rigid or too vulnerable, too active or too passive. The key to balance is sadhana, consistent spiritual practice. Gurudev prescribes three steps: the breath, the meditation, and knowledge. Breath harmonizes the left and right hemispheres of the brain. Meditation connects us with the causal level and knowledge refines the intellect. Sudarshan Kriya is particularly powerful because it balances the Ida, the feminine, the lunar, and the Pingla, or the masculine, or the solar nadis, restoring pranic symmetry. When prana flows evenly, emotions stabilize and inner harmony blossoms. Furthermore, seva or selfless service helps dissolve ego, which is the main barrier to this balance. Gurudev also advises spending time in nature, chanting mantras, and being in satsang. For these purify subtle impressions or samskaras. Over time, such practices awaken the state of Ardhanarishvara, the harmonious union of Shiva and Shakti within. Suffering ends when we stop fighting our dual nature and instead learn to celebrate it. Spiritual practice, therefore, is not an escape from life but a method to live it in total balance, strong yet soft, clear yet compassionate. Now, Gurudev narrated that even after surgical transformation, some people remain dissatisfied. How does this illustrate the limits of external change? Gurudev's example of a person remaining unfulfilled post surgery remains and reveals a universal truth that real happiness cannot come from altering external conditions. When inner dissonance remains unresolved, outer transformation provides only temporary relief. The dissatisfaction arises because the root of identity lies not in the body but in the subtle and causal layers. One may change appearance, name, or environment, but if the mind remains turbulent, peace remains distant. Gurudev's compassionate message is to go beyond the body mind complex into the spirit, the source of unchanging bliss. This doesn't mean condemning medical choices, it means supplementing them with the self awareness. Without understanding the self, one keeps seeking validation through endless modification. Meditation, chanting, and breath work keep quiet the inner chatter, revealing the joy that was never lost. Gurudev beautifully puts it: when you know you are the spirit, no outer condition can shake your peace. The real surgery, therefore, is not physical but spiritual, a transformation from ignorance to awareness. Once that happens, even the body feels like a sacred temple, not a battleground of identity. Now, Gurudev said usually the physical body is male, the subtle body is female, and when this physical is female, the subtle becomes male. What spiritual law governs this reversal? The reversal reveals the cosmic law of polarity, a fundamental principle in both Vedic and yogic science. The universe itself sustains through complementary opposites, day and night, sun and moon, prana and apana. Gurudev points out that these opposites exist within each being as balancing counterparts. The subtle body's tendency to express the opposite polarity of the physical ensures equilibrium. This inner interplay maintains psychological health and spiritual growth. When one meditates deeply, these energies stop conflicting and begin cooperating, leading to serenity. In Kundalini Yoga, this union occurs when Shakti arises through Sushumna to meet Shiva at the crown of the Sahasrara. It's a symbolic marriage, the same principle Gurudev expresses in modern terms. When this union happens, gender identity dissolves into pure consciousness. That is why the great saints, male or female, often manifest qualities of both gentleness and strength. The masculine seeks to transcend, the feminine seeks to nurture. Together they form wholeness or Purna Tattva. Gurudev's wisdom is not heretical, it's a map to experiencing this unity within oneself. Now, how does Gurudev's explanation of a spirit beyond gender contribute to building a more compassionate society? Gurudev's perspective offers an antidote to polarization and division. When people identify solely with gender, race, or ideology, conflict naturally follows. But when they see themselves as spirit, a spark of the same divine consciousness, compassion arises effortlessly. This shift in perception can transform education, relationships, and governance. Gurdjieff's art of living programs already exemplify this. People from every background come together in meditation, transcending boundaries of identity. Compassion is born when ego drops, and ego drops when identity expands. Recognizing the spirit beyond gender also dissolves prejudice. We stop judging others by appearance or preference and begin to see them as expressions of the same consciousness. This is the essence of Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam, the world as one family. Gurudev's teaching invites society to move from tolerance to true acceptance, from sympathy to love. Spirituality doesn't erase diversity, it celebrates it within the context of unity. In a world where identity politics often create separation, Gurudev's voice reminds humanity of the timeless truth. You are the infinite, not the label. Now, how can parents and teachers practically apply Gurudev's wisdom while raising or educating children in this modern context? Gurudev's guidance for parents and educators is a profoundly simple: nurture awareness rather than identify. Instead of forcing fixed ideas about gender or behavior, allow children to explore both their creative and logical sides. Encourage activities that engage both hemispheres of the brain, the art, the sports, the meditation, and service. Introduce them early to yoga, chanting, and breathing exercises to strengthen emotional intelligence. Gurudev often says that children learn not from lectures but from vibration. When adults around them are calm and balanced, children mirror that balance. Teachers can create classrooms where mutual respect, not comparison, prevails. Discuss stories from the epics where male and female sages, warriors, and poets reflect diverse expressions of human potential. The Bhagavad Gita can be taught not as religion but as psychology or balance. By grounding children in meditation and self awareness, they develop confidence and compassion, the best antidotes to confusion. Gurudev's approach integrates modern education with timeless wisdom, ensuring that children grow into balanced, inclusive, and joyful individuals. Now, Gurudev said spirit is not gender. How does this align with the teachings of the other world traditions? This statement resonates universally. In Christianity, it is said that in the image of God, He created them, the male and female, He created them, suggesting that divinity transcends gender, it expresses both. In Buddhism, the enlightened mind, the Bodhichitta, is beyond all distinctions, representing compassion and wisdom, feminine and masculine, in perfect harmony. In Taoism, the yin and yang mirror the same principle of dual forces within the one. Gurudev's teaching thus bridges the East and West, uniting mystical insights across faiths. He reminds us that spirituality is not about conversion but connection. When we rise in consciousness, labels like male, female, Hindu, Muslim, Christian, or Buddhist lose their limiting power. The spirit shines as the essence of all. Gurudev's global mission through the art of living brings this unity alive. Whether one chants Om Namah Shivaya or prays in silence, the experience of spirit is the same, vast, formless, and beyond gender. In that realization, all religions converge. Now, what happens according to Gurudev when the subtle body and the physical body finally align? When the subtle and physical bodies align, life becomes a symphony of grace. There is no inner conflict, no sense of incompleteness. The breath flows freely, emotions become refined, and intuition awakens. Gurudev explains that in such alignment, one feels centered, neither swayed by outer opinions nor inner confusion. This state is called Samyastava in the Yoga Vasishtha, the perfect balance of inner and outer worlds. In practical life, such a person radiates confidence without arrogance, compassion without weakness. Their decisions are guided by intuition rooted in peace. Gurudev's techniques and teachings like Sudarshan Kriya, Sahat Samadhi meditation, and silence retreats, the advanced courses, are designed precisely to bring this alignment. When prana, mind, and body move in the same rhythm, the spirit shines through. This alignment is also the foundation of health, creativity, and harmonious relationships. Ultimately, it leads to moksha, the liberation from all conflict, inner or outer. Now, finally, how does Gurudev's teaching on gender and spirit contribute to the evolution of human consciousness in this age? Gurudev's discourse is not just about gender, it's about the next leap in collective consciousness. Humanity has evolved from tribal to intellectual awareness. Now it must evolve to spiritual awareness. This shift means recognizing ourselves as consciousness, not as physical or social constructs. Gurudev's words, you are a spirit, are revolutionary in their simplicity. They call us to live from our center where compassion, creativity, and clarity coexist. When enough individuals realize this truth, societal conflicts based on identity, gender, and ideology will dissolve naturally. The Vedic Dhamma Sansthan and the art of living together play a crucial role in this awakening to rituals, knowledge, and meditation. They make ancient wisdom accessible for modern seekers. This integration of science, spirituality, and human values that Gurudev embodies heralds the dawn of a new era, the era of consciousness. In this age, humanity will transcend gender, nationality, and religion, recognizing itself as one luminous being, the Satchitananda, pure existence, consciousness, and bliss. Sir Jayadev. Jagadu, now Gurudev begins this part of the discourse by saying, you are made up of both mother and father. How does this simple statement relate to the understanding of gender in the spiritual context? Jagadu, it's profoundly symbolic. Gurudev reveals that within every individual lies both the masculine and feminine principles, the Purusha and the Prakriti. Biologically, we inherit genes from both parents, but spiritually, these represent complementary energies. The masculine aspect embodies structure, logic, and will, while the feminine manifests compassion, intuition, and flow. The harmony of these two determines our emotional and spiritual balance. Denying one leads to imbalance, confusion, or suffering. The Vedas call this inner unity Ardhanarishvara Tattva, the state where Shiva, consciousness, and Shakti or energy coexist seamlessly. Gurudev beautifully explains that acknowledging both sides within brings integration and peace rather than psychological conflict. Now, Gurudev says you must accept both the male and female within you. Why is acceptance central to spiritual evolution? Jagdev, acceptance transforms duality into unity. When we resist a part of ourselves, we divide our consciousness. Many people are conditioned by society to suppress their sensitivity if male or assertiveness if female. Gurudev's wisdom redefines acceptance as spiritual maturity. It means recognizing that strength and tenderness are not gendered, they are human. In meditation, as breath becomes subtler, we experience both energies balancing automatically. So, Darshan Kriya, for example, helps dissolve rigid identities and makes one fluid like nature itself. True yoga is a union of opposites, hence, acceptance is not weakness, it is a transcendence of polarity. Now, Gurudev mentions the male subtype has female tendencies and the female subtype has male tendencies. How does this reflect modern psychology's idea of the anima and animus? That's an excellent connection. Carl Jung's concept of anima, the feminine aspect in men, and animus, the masculine aspect in women, parallels Gurudev's insight but originates from ancient Vedic understanding. In yogic psychology, the Pingala Nadi or the soul and the Ida Nagli or the lunar govern these energies. When Pingala dominates excessively, aggression arises. When Ida dominates, passivity prevails. The practice of alternate nostril breathing, the Nadi Shodhan Pranayama, restored balance. Gurudev bridges modern psychology and spirituality, suggesting that imbalance between these energies leads to identity conflicts. Hence, spiritual practices align and realign the subtle system rather than external changes. Now, Gurudev narrates an example of a person changing behavior after an operation. What is the spiritual root of such inner dissatisfaction? Gurudev says compassion shines here. He points out that even after physical transformation, the inner unease persists because the cause is subtler than the body. It's energetic and karmic. The subtle body or the Sukshma Sharira carries impressions of past experiences and gender tendencies from many lifetimes. Surgery cannot rewire and rewrite a karmic memory. Only deep spiritual understanding and meditative purification can. Gurudev emphasizes compassion and education rather than judgment, urging society to recognize spiritual roots of psychological distress instead of forcing bodily conformity. Now, Gurudev says psychology should advance and teach them spirituality. You are a spirit. What does this mean for modern mental health systems? It's revolutionary. Gurudev is not denying psychology but completing it. Modern psychology often stops in the mind and the mind, but spirituality goes deeper to the Atman. When therapy integrates spiritual wisdom, healing becomes holistic. A person learns to identify not as gender role or emotion but as pure consciousness. This shift dissolves trauma and identity conflict. Gurudev's teaching suggests that mental health must evolve into spiritual health, where meditation, breathing techniques, and self knowledge are foundational tools for psychological balance. The Gurudev states spirit is not gender. How does this truth redefine our sense of identity? The spirit transcends all labels, gender, nationality, caste. These are temporary costumes worn by consciousness. When one meditates deeply, all distinctions dissolve into pure presence. Gurudev says realization of spirit is realization of universality. In this awareness, compassion naturally blossoms because you see yourself in everyone. The Gita echoes this. The Samaha Sarveshu Bhuteshu Tishtatam Parameshwaram. The divine is equal in all beings. Thus, knowing yourself as spirit is liberation from limited identity. Now, Gurudev also explains that the subtle body usually has the opposite polarity of the physical body. Can you explain this phenomenon? Yes, it's one of Gurudev's most esoteric revelations. The physical body expresses one polarity, but the subtle body, the field of prana, the thoughts and emotions, complements it. For instance, a male may have a nurturing, intuitive, subtle nature, while a female may have a decisive, assertive, subtle nature. This creates inner wholeness when both layers align harmoniously. There is balance when dissonance occurs. Confusion or restlessness arises through pranayama, meditation, and chanting. This alignment is restored, enabling a person to experience oneness between body, mind, and soul. Now, the causal body has no gender at all, it is pure. What is this causal body and how does it function beyond polarity? The causal body or the Karan Sharira is the subtlest sheath where impressions of karma reside. It's beyond male or female, beyond time. Gurudev says it is pure potentiality like the seed that contains all possibilities but is itself unmanifest. When one's awareness reaches the causal plane in deep meditation, individuality disappears, leaving only Brahman, the infinite consciousness. At that level, there is no concept of gender, personality, or identity, only pure existence, bliss, and silence. Now, Gurudev remarks when subtle body develops in a male, it becomes more feminine. What spiritual law governs this transformation? This reflects the cosmic principle of balance. The universe itself seeks equilibrium between masculine and feminine energies. When one evolves spiritually, rigidity softens, compassion and receptivity increases. This is not weakness but refinement. Gurudev teaches that advanced yogis become androgynous in energy, calm yet powerful, gentle yet firm. Its natural progression through Ardhanarishwara Tattva, symbolizing unity of Shiva and Shakti within. Now, Gurudev says if subtle and physical bodies don't match, you can read all that, but it's all temporary. How should we interpret this temporariness? Jagadav Gurudev reminds us that all manifestations are transient. Our bodies change lifetime after lifetime, but the soul remains untouched. Mismatches between inner and outer identity may occur due to karmic residues, yet they are temporary expressions of evolution. With awareness and meditation, one transcends even this mismatch and rests in the eternal witness, the Sakshi. When spirit is realized, all conflicts dissolve. Now, Gurudev warns that psychologists torture people by telling them to change their body. What compassionate approach does he recommend instead? Gurudev advocates inner transformation over outer modification. The real suffering is not in the body but in mistaken identity. Instead of forcing conformity through surgeries or labels, one should cultivate awareness through knowledge and spiritual practices. Gurudev's message is not moralistic but deeply compassionate. Don't manipulate the body, awaken the spirit. When consciousness expands, the obsession with identity naturally fades. Now, Gurudev says line, don't change your body, change your mind. You are a spirit. Sounds like a direct spiritual prescription. How does this work in practice? Indeed, it's a prescription of liberation. Changing the body might provide momentary relief, but changing the mind through meditation, self knowledge, and seva brings lasting freedom. Gurudev emphasizes that realization of spirit frees us from constant craving for approval. Once the mind aligns with higher truth, contentment arises naturally. This is why art of living courses train participants look within rather than seek external validation. Now, Gurudev gives a powerful social example. Every father has sometimes acted like a mother. What message lies behind this observation? Gurudev demystifies gender roles. Compassion, care, authority, and protection are human qualities, not gendered ones. A father's tenderness and a mother's strength reflect the same universal energy manifesting in different forms. When we transcend rigid definitions, families become harmonious and inclusive. In ancient Vedic society, such fluidity was revered, not condemned. Gurudev revives that wisdom for today's world. How can Gurudev's teaching help in resolving modern gender conflicts and identity crisis? By returning us to the source, the spirit identity conflicts arise when we identify too much with the form. Meditation reveals the formless essence behind all forms, the formless essence behind all forms. Gurudev's message restores dignity to every individual, regardless of orientation, by showing that everyone is a divine spark. When people live with this awareness, compassion replaces judgment and society evolves toward inclusion. Now, can you relate Gurudev's insights to the concept of Ardhanarishwara in Shaivism? Ardhanarishwara symbolizes the cosmic balance of Shiva, the consciousness, and Shakti, or the energy. Gurudev interprets it not merely as mythology but in a reality. Every human embodies both poles. When meditation deepens, duality dissolves, and one experiences that half male, half female divinity within. It's the culmination of yoga, the union of opposites. Now, how do art of living techniques facilitate this balance of inner energies? Through breath, awareness, and rhythm, Sudarshan Kriya harmonizes the flow of prana across the Ida and Pingala nadis, balancing masculine and feminine aspects. Sahat Samadhi meditation takes practitioners to the causal level where gender and identity vanish into silence. The result is effortless acceptance, emotional intelligence, and deep inner peace. Gurudev's technology of consciousness makes ancient truths experientially accessible. Now, Gurudev's tone remains deeply compassionate toward those struggling with gender identity. How does this align with Vedic inclusivity? Ancient India celebrated diversity. The Tritiya Prakriti, the third nature, was recognized in scriptures. Gurudev revives that inclusivity through spiritual understanding rather than social labeling. He teaches that once in each being's journey is sacred. Compassion, not correction, is the response. The Vedas never condemned a variation, they honored the spirit in all forms. Now, how does realizing I am spirit change one's relationship with society? Jagadav, it brings equanimity. You no longer seek validation or superiority. Instead, you radiate compassion because you recognize the same consciousness in all. Gurudev often says, when you know you are nothing, you can love everything. This realization dissolves fear, shame, and division, making one an instrument of harmony. How can educators and psychologists integrate Gurudev's message into their work? By incorporating spiritual literacy alongside emotional intelligence, they must teach existential intelligence, the awareness of self as spirit. Simple breathing and mindfulness practices in schools can help children recognize both masculine and feminine energies naturally. Gurudev envisions education that nurtures wholeness, not fragmentation. Finally, what is the essence of Gurudev's message in this discourse? The essence is integration. You are not just body, not just mind. You are spirit within you. Dance both Shiva and Shakti. Accept balance and transcend. When awareness rests in the causal body, all conflicts, the gender, the ego, or desire dissolve into divine bliss. This is true freedom, the realization that you were never divided to begin with. Jai Gurudev. Yeah, so the discourse begins with Gurudev speaking about fathers and mothers taking each other's roles. How does this reveal the deeper spiritual balance within human nature? Yeah, the Gurudev beautifully points out that every father has at times acted with a mother's tenderness, and every mother has at times shown the firmness of a father. This interplay is not accidental. It reveals the dual principle of Purusha and Prakriti operating within each of us. In spiritual growth, the boundaries of gender based behavior soften, compassion and strength, nurturing and protection all blend into a single balanced energy. Now, in the Vedic tradition and vision, the Shiva and Shakti are never separate, they coexist within the same consciousness. Gurudev's statement reflects that when one walks the spiritual path, the masculine and feminine energies merge harmoniously. This is why ancient texts often describe realized beings as Ardhanareshwara, the half male, the half female, symbolizing completeness. The fatherly protection and motherly care both arise from the same consciousness. It's not about biology, but about spiritual maturity. Yes, and Gurudev emphasizes that as one becomes more centered in the self, these polarities dissolve. You are no longer confined by rules or expectations. You act from wholeness, and in that wholeness, there is a natural compassion, balance, and intelligence that guides every action. Spiritual evolution means integration or division. Now, Gurudev mentions the more you go on the spiritual path, the more your father and mother go to each other. What is the inner meaning of this statement? Like, this statement carries a profound symbolic meaning. Father and mother here represent two principles: the jnana or knowledge, the wisdom, and the discrimination, and prema or the love, the nurturing, the wisdom, and the emotion. As you advance spiritually, these two aspects unite. The intellect becomes compassionate and love becomes wise. This is the merging of the inner father and mother. That's beautifully said. Now, in spiritual practice, whether through meditation, sudarshan kriya, or seva, one begins to experience unity within. The logical, goal driven part of us, the father, softens into empathy and understanding of the mother, and the emotional caring aspect of mother gains steadiness and clarity of father. Gurudev calls this balance where one transcends gender identity and lives as pure consciousness. In Vedic Sanskrit, this union is depicted as yoga itself, the union of Shiva and Shakti within the Sushumna Nadi. When this happens, one becomes the Dvadatita, beyond all dualities. Gurudev's simple examples about family life conceal the subtle esoteric truth that the highest realization is not separation but integration of both energies of both roles. Now, Gurudev says you are bisexual then, and you are very important. How should this be understood spiritually and not biologically? Gurudev uses the word bisexual here in a purely spiritual and symbolic sense. He refers to a person who embodies both masculine and feminine energies in harmony. It's not about physical or social identity, but about energy balance. When one's consciousness expands, one naturally expresses both motherly compassion and fatherly responsibility. Exactly, in Tantric and Vedic tradition, this is a high spiritual state. The Ardhanarishwara Tattva within represents the transcendence of duality. The sage who has realized the self does not identify with gender, caste, or role. Gurudev's humor and compassion in explaining this idea dissolve rigid moral judgments and bring inclusivity from a spiritual plane. Yes, and Gurudev often reminds us that the self is beyond all categories. When someone realizes the divine within, they operate from universality, not limitation. So, to be bisexual in Gurudev's sense is to be balanced, whole, and capable of expression the full range of human love and wisdom without confusion but with deep awareness. Now, Gurudev refers to the Mandapika, the Guru Tattva Sattva. Could you elaborate on what this means? The Sanskrit phrase has deep resonance. The Guru Mandapika signifies the spiritual canopy or the sheltering consciousness of the Guru. The Guru Tattva refers to the principle of the Guru, the guiding light of knowledge. Sattva denotes purity, balance, and harmony. Together, the phrase implies that the Guru embodies the perfect balance of both paternal and maternal energies, firm yet compassionate, guiding and embracing an art of living. We experience Gurudev as both the divine father and mother. When he teaches, he is firm like a father, disciplining the mind. When he consoles, he is like tender, like a mother nurturing the heart. The Guru Tattva integrates all such qualities. It is neither masculine nor feminine. It's pure sattva, the energy of balance. And that's why Gurudev says that as we move closer to the spirit, all distinctions, the young and old, male and female, father and mother, merge into that one divine flow. The Guru Mandapika becomes the sacred space where the seeker experiences this unity directly. Now, Gurudev describes one spirit that comes in all forms and has all implications. How can this understanding transform human relationships? Jagadav, when you realize that one spirit manifests through all beings, judgment drops. You no longer categorize people as friend or foe, male or female, parent or child. You see the same consciousness playing different roles. This shifts relationships from dependency to divinity. You relate through love, not expectation. Indeed, in Vedic understanding, this is called Ekam Sadvipra Bahuta Vadanti. Truth is one. The wise call it by many names. Gurudev's words take us back to this essence. Whether we act as father, mother, teacher, or child, it's the same Atman expressing itself. When one lives from this awareness, every relationship becomes sacred. This vision dissolves ego and comparison. Compassion arises naturally, and so does equanimity. Gurudev often says, the closer you come to the self, the more universal your love becomes. That is the essence of seeing the one spirit in all. Now, Gurudev reminds us of the first meditation: you have no body, no place, you see everybody as energy. How does this realization relate to the concept of oneness in the universe? Together, when Gurudev asks us to see ourselves and others as no body, no place, he is inviting us to dissolve our identification with form. The moment we detach from the physical identity, a vast sense of freedom arises. We start perceiving existence as a single field of energy, the infinite, vibrant, and alive. This vision is the foundation of spiritual awareness, where boundaries disappear and only consciousness remains. Exactly, this idea echoes the Upanishadic teaching of Sarvam Khalvidam Brahma. All this is Brahman. Gurudev is not giving a theory, but a direct meditative experience. When we experience everyone as energy, compassion naturally arises. We realize that hurting another is like hurting oneself. This awareness elevates human behavior beyond morality to pure spontaneous dharma. Yes, when the sense of mine and yours resolves, love becomes unconditional. Gurudev says meditations train us to perceive through the inner eye of awareness rather than through the ego's lens. The more we practice, the more naturally we experience unity, where all distinctions of religion, gender, nationality fade into one flow of energy and consciousness. That's the essence of seeing no body, only spirit. Now, Gurudev describes the qualities within that energy: the compassion, protectiveness, nurturing, and companionship. How do these aspects reflect divine love and human expression? The divine expresses through these qualities compassion or karuna in Shiva's stillness, and motion nurturing Poshana is Shakti's tenderness, protectiveness is Vishnu's preservation, companionship or the Sangha Bhava is the soul's yearning to unite. Further beautifully shows how these diverse expressions arise from one source, the prem of the divine love. Yes, in practical life, when we meditate and our mind becomes silent, we start reflecting these divine qualities. Naturally, we become more caring yet detached, more loving yet centered. That's the hallmark of spiritual maturity. Gurudev's teaching shows that love is not an emotion limited to one relationship. It's a universal vibration that manifests differently depending on the context. In Vedic Dharma, this is the concept of rasa. The divine love flows through various rasas: compassion, friendship, parental affection, romantic devotion, and service, but all stem from the same consciousness. Gurudev's wisdom allows us to recognize these as sacred currents of the divine within us. Through sadhana and seva, these become our spontaneous nature. Now, Gurudev says that these expressions of love are not one entity but different flavors. How should a seeker perceive this multiplicity without losing sight of unity? There is the beauty of creation as diversity. Gurudev explains that love expresses through countless flavors, yet its source is one, just as sunlight refracts into many colors through a prism. Divine love refracts into various human emotions. The mistake happens when we get attached to one color and forget the sun behind it. Spiritual practice helps us remember the source. Indeed, the Bhagavad Gita also says, Matta parataram nanya, there is nothing beyond me. All emotions, actions, and forms are expressions of the divine. The wise unity behind multiplicity. Gurudev's teaching encourages seekers to celebrate this diversity, but not get entangled in it. It is a call to enjoy every rasa without ownership or craving. Yes, that is liberation in action. When we love without grasping, when we serve without ego, when we express but stay centered, we embody divine play or lila. Gurudev's words remind us that we are instruments to which the infinite expresses its countless flavors. Recognizing this keeps the heart open and the mind free. Now, Gurudev narrates an incident from America where identity and gender confusion led to societal and institutional challenges. How should one approach such modern issues with spiritual clarity? This is a very relevant observation. Gurudev doesn't mock or condemn, instead, he points to the root in confusion, identification with the temporary. Modern identity crisis, whether about gender or self image, arise when one defines oneself only through body or role. Spiritual clarity means knowing I am consciousness, not merely a gender, profession, or belief. Yes, and Gurudev brings compassion into the discussion. He shows that when society loses touch with the inner self, external confusion multiplies. The solution is not judgment but awareness. Through meditation, people can experience their identity beyond labels, beyond he, she, or they. The self is beyond dualities, yet it embraces all. In Vedic Dharma, this understanding is ancient. The soul or Atman has no gender, no form, no limitation. Recognizing this restores balance and dignity to all beings. Gurudev's discourse gently urges society to see divinity in everyone rather than fight over definitions. When awareness rises, compassion replaces criticism. How does Gurudev's perspective help us navigate today's debates on gender, identity, and inclusivity? Gurudev's wisdom bridges the ancient and the modern. He doesn't deny gender expression, but he transcends it. He reminds us that the self within is complete, both masculine and feminine. Inclusivity when then becomes natural, not ideological. When one realizes the divinity within, acceptance of others blossoms spontaneously. Yes, in the Vedic Dharma, divinity is described as Purna, the whole and perfect. Every person carries both Purusha, the consciousness, and Prakriti or energy. Gurudev's approach is deeply healing because it invites self acceptance first. When people realize their own wholeness, we stop projecting rejection or superiority onto others. Exactly, his teaching transforms inclusivity from a social demand into a spiritual expression. When we see all as energy, all as spirit, divisions drop, respect and compassion arise naturally. In that light, gender identity becomes just one of the many ways consciousness plays, not a source of separation or suffering. Now, Gurudev often relates spirituality to day life. How can parents apply this understanding of balanced energies in raising their children? The parents are the child's first experience of divine balance. Gurudev says every father should express tenderness like a mother, and every mother should show strength like a father. When both energies operate harmoniously, the child grows with emotional stability and inner security. This balance shapes the next generation's spiritual foundation. True, Gurudev often guides parents to meditate and release stress. When they are calm, their interactions naturally balance firmness and affection. A father who meditates becomes more compassionate. A mother who practices pranayama gains strength and patience. This is living spirituality, not withdrawing from family life, but infusing it with awareness. The Smriti says, Matru Devo Bhava, Pitru Devo Bhava, wherever mother and father is divine. Gurudev expands this further, become divine parents yourself. When both embody love and discipline, the home becomes a temple and parenting becomes a form of seva to the divine. The Gurudev speaks of energy expressing as compassion, care, and companionship. How does one maintain this love without attachment? The attachment arises when love seeks possession. Gurudev teaches love without expectation in deep meditation. We experience that the source of love is within, it doesn't depend on another. From that fullness, you can care deeply without clinging. Such love heals rather than binds. Yes, in the Bhakti Yoga, this is Ananya Bhakti, devotion that is pure and unconditional. The mind becomes still when it loves without motive. Gurudev says practices like Sudarshan Kriya help dissolve emotional toxins in our love. So our love becomes expansive. We start seeing relationships not as transactions but as sacred opportunities for expressing divine energy. Exactly, when awareness deepens, love becomes self sustaining. You love because that is your nature, not because of what you get in return. This is the transformation Gurudev speaks of from dependency to divinity. Now, Gurudev speaks about moments of confusion when people lose clarity about right and wrong. How does spiritual wisdom help overcome such confusion? Gurudev often says that confusion is a sign of growth when the old patterns dissolve but the new clarity hasn't dawned yet. The mind oscillates. Spiritual wisdom doesn't immediately remove confusion, but helps us stay centered amidst it through meditation, pranayama, and the guidance of the Guru. The inner fog clears naturally. We stop reacting and start observing. Yes, in Vedic philosophy, the confusion or samasya arises when buddhi or the intellect is clouded by rajas and tamas, restlessness and inertia. The solution is to awaken sattva, the quality of purity and balance. Gurudev's practices are designed to do exactly that. When sattva increases, discrimination or viveka sharpens, and confusion transforms into understanding. Gurudev gives a practical example through modern stories, not to criticize but to show how the absence of inner stillness creates social chaos. When people are centered, decisions come effortlessly because the guidance comes from the spirit, not the ego. Confusion disappears when we realize I am not the doer, I am the witness. Now, Gurudev often stresses the power of awareness. How does awareness transform one's experience of life and relationships? Yeah, the awareness is the bridge between the finite and the infinite. In Vedanta, it's called Chaitanya. Gurudev explains that awareness purifies perception. When we become aware, we stop seeing people through our projections. We see them as they are manifestations of the same consciousness. This changes the very chemistry of relationships. Exactly, Gurudev says meditations cultivate this awareness. The more we practice, the less we react to people's behavior and the more we respond with understanding. Awareness brings space between stimulus and response. That space is where compassion, wisdom, and creativity reside. In relationships, this means less conflict and more connection. In the Upanishads, awareness is described as Sakshi Bhava, the state of witnessing. Gurudev brings this ancient truth into daily life. When awareness becomes a natural state, joy and clarity flow effortlessly. Life becomes a play, not a struggle. Now, Gurudev mentions that the closer you move to the spirit, the more you experience wholeness. How is this wholeness different from worldly completeness? Yeah, the worldly completeness depends on circumstances, success, relationships, and possessions. Spiritual wholeness is independent of all that. Gurudev teaches that when you touch your spirit, you realize nothing is missing. You feel fulfilled even in simplicity. This inner completeness is the essence of santosha, contentment born of self awareness. Yes, the Shastras describe this as a Purnatva. The Isha Upanishad says Purnamada Purnamidam. This is complete and this is complete. Wholeness is our nature, not something to be acquired. Gurudev's path through Sudarshan Kriya, Seva, and Satsang helps us reconnect with that inherent fullness. Once this is realized, worldly achievements become expressions of joy, not of need. Exactly, Gurudev's wisdom reminds us that happiness is not the result of perfection outside, but of peace within and inside. When we feel whole, we contribute to the world selflessly, love freely, and live lightly. This is true spiritual maturity. Now, Gurudev uses the phrase Guru Tattva Sattva. How does the Guru's presence help balance these energies within a seeker? The Guru Tattva is not just a person but a cosmic principle, the light of consciousness that dispels ignorance. Sattva means harmony and purity. The Guru awakens the Sattva in the seeker by aligning their energies through wisdom, presence, and vibration. The Guru transforms chaos into calm and doubt into faith. Yes, Gurudev often says Guru is the mirror. When you sit with the Guru, your scattered energy settle and your true self shines forth. In his presence, both the masculine energy of strength and the feminine energy of surrender find balance. That is why people feel motherly love and fatherly protection in Gurudev simultaneously. Indeed, there is a real initiation or diksha. The Guru's vibration harmonizes the seeker's inner elements of earth, water, fire, air, and ether. When balance is restored, the spirit naturally awakens. Gurudev embodies this living Guru Sattattva Sattva in every discourse and silence. Now, Gurudev says that when you see everyone as energy, compassion arises. How does this connect to the concept of ahimsa in Vedic Dharma? Together, when we see all beings as energy, harming anyone becomes unthinkable. Compassion is no longer a moral choice, it's a spontaneous expression of awareness. Gurudev often says, you don't practice non-violence, you become non-violence. This is the true essence of ahimsa, a reflection of inner harmony, not external restraint. Yes, the Yoga Sutras describe ahimsa as the highest vow or Mahavrata. It's not limited to physical action but includes thought and emotion. Gurudev's teachings bring this ancient principle into modern relevance. When people do Sudarshan Kriya or meditate, aggression and judgment melt away naturally because energy patterns shift from turbulence to peace. Exactly, this shows how science and spirituality align. As the nervous system calms, empathy increases, the sense of separation fades, and compassion arises effortlessly. Ahimsa then becomes a natural fragrance of a meditative mind. Now, Gurudev often speaks and talks about the union of opposites or the masculine and feminine energies, the Shiva and Shakti merge within. How does this lead to enlightenment? In Tantric and Vedic understanding, enlightenment and moksha is the realization of non duality, the merging of Shiva, the pure consciousness, and Shakti, or the creative energy. Gurudev explains this in modern language by showing how balance brings peace. When our action and rest, strength and softness, intellect and emotion are in harmony, we experience a self beyond duality. Yes, and Gurudev simplifies this profound truth beautifully. Everyone carries a nurturing mother within, and every woman carries a protective father within. Recognizing this unity dissolves all inner conflict. The meditation, the kriya, and the devotion help these energies rise to the Sushumna Nadi, uniting as the Sahasrara. That moment is enlightenment. The seeker and the sought become one. This is why Gurudev often says, you are Shiva. It's not a metaphor but a realization. When the polarities dissolve, what remains is pure existence, the unchanging, the infinite, and the blissful. Now, Gurudev often guides us to witness the play of life rather than get entangled in it. How does this witnessing attitude liberate the mind? The mind becomes free the moment it shifts from I am the doer to I am the witness. Gurudev's meditations cultivate this witnessing consciousness of the Sakshi Bhava. When you observe your emotions, thoughts, and circumstances without resistance, you realize that they are just passing waves in the ocean of awareness. The self remains untouched. Yes, the Bhagavad Gita echoes this truth of Udasinava, the Asina. The wise remains unattached, though engaged. Gurudev brings this wisdom into daily life. Whether you face success or failure, you act fully yet stay centered. That is true freedom. You live in the world but not of it. Exactly, this witnessing attitude transforms suffering into learning, anger into compassion, and chaos into dance. When we live as a witness, we stop fighting with life, we start flowing with it. That is liberation while living, the Jivan Mukti. Finally, how does Gurudev's message in this discourse help us understand our role in the universe? Gurudev reveals that we are not separate fragments but expressions of the cosmic consciousness. The universe is not out there, it is within every thought, every breath participates in the divine rhythm. Understanding this makes us humble and responsible custodians of life. Yes, the discourse You and the Universe reminds us that spirituality is not escape, it's a participation with awareness. When we realize our unity with the cosmos, seva or the selfless service becomes natural, we start living in harmony with nature, people, and time. Gurudev calls this the evolution from individuality to universality. This is the heart of Sanatana Dharma, to live knowing you are both wave and ocean, unique yet inseparable. Gurudev's wisdom brings this truth alive for modern seekers, bridging science with spirit and spirituality, east and west. When we live as this awareness, we embody peace, love, and balance, the true purpose of human life. Jai Gurudev. Now, Gurudev spoke about a man identifying as a woman and the confusion it created even in prison. How should this be understood spiritually? Now, the Gurudev brings this point not as a social or political statement, but as a pointer to the deeper philosophical truth about identity. In the Vedic equation, the aham, the sense of I, is not limited to the body. When someone feels I am not this gender, it is actually a reflection of the Atman yearning to transcend form. The confusion arises when we try to equate a spiritual identity with the bodily or mental attributes. Gurudev explains that beyond male and female, there exists Purusha or consciousness and Prakriti or manifestation. The moment consciousness identifies only with gender, nation, or physical form, suffering begins. In this discourse, he beautifully indicates that even such identity struggles can be seen as part of evolution toward understanding I am neither man nor woman, I am pure consciousness. Indeed, in Vedic texts, rishis like Ardhanarishwara, half Shiva, half Shakti, symbolize the unity of masculine and feminine within us. The confusion society faces today is because people are trying to correct the outer without realizing the inner harmony. Gurudev's words encourage compassion toward all identities while guiding toward a deeper truth that every soul carries both principles and must transcend duality through awareness and sadhana. Now, Gurudev mentioned that the asana body is two dimensional and cannot be changed. What does that mean in yogic philosophy? In yoga and Vedanta, the human being has multiple layers: the Annamaya Kosha, the physical body; the Pranamaya Kosha, the energy body; the Manomaya Kosha, or the mental body; and the Vijnanamaya Kosha, or the intellect; and the Anandamaya Kosha, or the bliss body. When Gurudev refers to the asana body, he means a subtle postural energy form, a two dimensional field that connects physical and pranic realms. This structure determines how prana flows through chakras and nadis. The statement, it cannot be changed, reflects an ancient truth. Once the subtle energetic blueprint of the Sukshma Sharira is formed, it remains constant through a lifetime. You can heal distortions or balance energies through pranayama, sudarshan kriya, or meditation, but you cannot redesign it fundamentally. In Vedic cosmology, even karmic impressions are imprinted here. Gurudev warns that modern philosophy often assumes identity as infinitely moldable, but the asana body is like the base geometry of one's existence. Understanding and accepting it brings a peace. Trying to alter what's structurally sacred only brings inner conflict. So, when Gurudev says a change in philosophy means decay of asana body, what is the deeper implication? It's an extraordinary statement. Gurudev is pointing out that when thought patterns become inconsistent with dharmic truth, when one's internal philosophy loses coherence, the subtle body or the asana sharira begins to decay. Just as the wrong diet harms the physical body, wrong thinking harms the energetic structure. From a Vedic standpoint, this is why ancient Gurukulas taught Samyaka Drishti, the right vision. When a person lives by confusion, judgment, or self denial, the pranic pathways twist, creating imbalance in chakras. Gurudev's observation that change in philosophy causes mental decay reminds us that truth is not relative, it's experiential. Our sadhana restores this clarity, ensuring that the subtle body remains vibrant. Gurudev mentioned that when a person has no asana body, there is no mind. How is the subtle body related to mind according to the scriptures? In yogic psychology, the mind or the manas is sustained by the pranic sheath. Without this sheath, the mind dissolves. Gurudev implies that the mind doesn't exist independently. It's a projection of energy patterns in the subtle body. Exactly, in the Taittiriya Upanishad, it said the prana is the thread and holds the mind, and body together. When the asana body dissolves, such as in deep meditation or at death, the mind ceases to operate. Gurudev's insight here aligns perfectly with the Upanishadic view that mind is not a thing but a process sustained by energy. Through Sudarshan Kriya and meditation, we purify this energy, thereby calming the mind effortlessly. Now, the discourse implies that spiritual ignorance causes distortion of the subtle body. How can one restore balance? Through awareness, acceptance, and alignment with truth. Gurudev often says, don't fight your mind, understand it. Practices like pranayama, kriya, and seva reharmonize the pranic flow, restoring the natural geometry of the asana body. From the dharmic perspective, every ritual, the Sandhya Vandanam, the Homa, or the chanting, is designed to align the Sukshma Sharira with the cosmic vibration. When we live in Satya, or the truth, and the Dharma, or righteousness, the asana body shines naturally. Gurudev's teaching split ancient Vedic tools with the modern stress relief science. That's the integration he envisions. Now, Gurudev lightly said, let us limit ourselves to one. This is good for business. What was his underlying message? It's Gurudev's humor masking deep wisdom. He is addressing the human tendency to overcomplicate the path. When he says limit ourselves to one, he means focus on one practice, one philosophy, one truth. Don't scatter the mind. In the Vedic system, Ekam Satvipra Bahuda Vadanti. Truth is one, sages call it by many names. Gurudev's statement reflects this. The business here is our spiritual growth. Too many ideologies dilute sincerity. When we stay with one authentic path like the Sudarshan Kriya and meditation taught by Gurudev, inner clarity blossoms. Now, Gurudev also mentioned that even rishis and saints have not met each other. What does that symbolize? It reveals that spiritual journeys are unique pathways to the same summit. Even the greatest rishis experience reality through their own prism of consciousness. That's beautifully said. Now, the Vedas say the infinite cannot be exhausted by one seer. Gurudev implies humility. No one can claim monopoly over truth. Even divine beings perceive only aspects of the infinite. Thus, instead of debate, we must honor diversity of realization. Now, how do we interpret Gurudev's statement that the greatest of the greatness could be not be reached for us? It's a reminder of human limitation. Gurudev humbly acknowledges that even our highest intellect cannot grasp the vastness of the universe. In the Brihandarkarya Upanishad, the Yajnavalkya says, not by speech, not by mind, not by sight can the self be known. Gurudev's line echoes this ancient truth. Our role is not to conquer the infinite, but to dissolve into it through surrender. Now, Gurudev subtly hinted that when philosophy decays, the mind cannot grasp subtle truths. What does that teach us about the importance of right knowledge or the Samyak Jnana? Gurudev's words remind us that true philosophy is not intellectual debate, it's experiential realization. The mind's stability depends on clarity of understanding. If philosophy becomes destroyed by ego, ideology, or confusion, the mind loses its foundation. This decay is not physical but vibrational. It weakens the pranic structure. Gurudeva constantly says, knowledge should bring silence, not noise. When knowledge turns into argument, it disconnects us from the source of truth. In the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna declares, Shraddhavan lavate jnanam, only the one with the faith and sincerity attains knowledge. The decay of philosophy is the loss of Shraddha. Gurudev's teaching revives this faith through direct experience. Practices like Sudarshan Kriya and meditation are not merely techniques, they purify the subtle sheath so that true wisdom can shine through. And right knowledge governs the mind. Every thought aligns with Dharma and life flows effortlessly with universal intelligence. Now, Gurudev said when a person has no asana body, there is no mind. Does this indicate that mind is not an independent entity but energy in motion? Yes, absolutely. In the yogic model, mind is not a thing but a movement of energy, the chitta vritti. Gurudev beautifully connects this to the asana body, showing that mind emerges from pranic oscillations. When those vibrations dissolve, like in deep meditation, mind vanishes temporarily. That's why Gurudev calls meditation the art of doing nothing. The Mandukya Upanishad elaborates this in the study of the Turiya state, the fourth state beyond waking, dreaming, and deep sleep. When prana becomes still, mind ceases and consciousness alone shines. Gurudev simplifies these ancient ideas for modern seekers. The asana body is the canvas and the mind is the brush. Still the brush and you perceive the canvas, the pure awareness. Now, Gurudev joked, we have plenty to work on right now. Let's leave it at that. How should we interpret this in sadhana? It's Gurudev's compassionate humor. He is reminding seekers not to rush into cosmic theories while neglecting daily practice. Spiritual growth doesn't come from collecting concepts but from consistent experience. Let's leave it at that means digest what's already given. In the art of living, Gurudev often says, do your sadhana, seva, and satsang. Everything else will follow. In the Vedic system, the adhyayana or the study is always accompanied by anushtana or the practice. One who learns but doesn't live the truth is like someone who reads about fire but never feels its warmth. Gurudev's teaching is extremely practical. First, stabilize your prana, purify your emotions, then explore the higher philosophies. The ancient rishis to warn against premature intellectualization. His merge bring humility and balance to the modern seeker's restless curiosity. Now, Gurudev remarked that the asana body has no other medium. What could this signify in terms of connection between subtle and causal planes? This line means that the asana body acts as a direct interface between the gross or physical and the causal or the karmic planes. There is no other medium to access the deeper realms of consciousness. Gurudev reminds us that transformation doesn't happen through external ritual alone. It must penetrate the subtle geometry of the self. According to the Shiva Sutras, the Shariram Bhavyam, the body itself, is the offering. The asanam of the body is the field where karma is processed, dharma is expressed, and consciousness manifests. Gurudev's statement beautifully integrates this ancient concept by refining the asana body through pranayama, bhakti, and meditation. One becomes transparent to cosmic intelligence. It's return to the original design of the soul. How does Gurudev's teaching bridge traditional Vedic metaphysics and modern questions of gender, identity, and body? Gurudev approaches identity from consciousness, not politics. He acknowledges that physical and psychological expressions vary, but reminds us that beneath all labels is the same pure self. His discourse invites compassion and clarity, not division. In Sudarshan Kriya discourses, we see people of every background dissolve stress and rediscover unity beyond identity. This is precisely what Vedic Dhammasastana upholds, the oneness of all beings. In the Rig Veda, it is said, Ekam Sabhi Prabhupada Vadanti, the truth is one expressed in many forms. Gurudev's genius is his ability to translate this into living wisdom for today's society. By understanding both masculine and feminine energies within, one becomes whole, transcending the external debates around gender. Now, Gurudev mentions that some truths are only for those doing a PhD. How do we know when we are ready for deeper wisdom? That line carries both humor and discernment. Gurudev implies that not every seeker should rush into metaphysics without foundation, just as a PhD requires prior degrees. Spiritual depth requires and needs inner purity and steadiness. Readiness is marked by a silent mind, compassion, and detachment from praise or blame. In the Yoga Vasista, it is said that knowledge should be given only when the vessel is prepared. Gurudev protects seekers from intellectual overload by ensuring that wisdom unfolds organically. One who lives in awareness of breath, mindfulness, and gratitude naturally grows into deeper inquiry. His teachings nurture seekers like a gardener watering only when the soil is ready. Now, when Gurudev says even the greatest have not met each other, does it suggest that enlightenment is a solitary realization? Yes, but not lonely, solitary in a sense. Enlightenment is an inward revelation, not a social event. Two enlightened beings may not meet in the worldly sense because realization transcends individuality. Gurudev uses this metaphor to remind us that awakening is intimate, wordless, and beyond comparison. In Advaita Vedanta, the self is described as a Kevala Atma, the one without a second. Even great rishis perceive the infinite or unique ways of consciousness. Gurudev's statement is deeply humble. It honors the mystery that remains even after awakening. This inspires seekers to respect every path rather than reclaiming supremacy of their own. Now, Gurudev's discussion about an unchangeable asana body implies destiny. Where does this free will fit into this framework? That's a wonderful question. Gurudev often explains that while the asanas as bodies are structured is fixed by past karma, our awareness of it brings freedom. The geometry may be constant, but how we move within it, our response, attitude, and surrender is our free will. That's where transformation begins. Exactly in the Gita, Krishna says, Swadharme Nidhanam Shreya. Better to follow one's own dharma. The asana body defines that dharma. Our unique rhythm, free will, is the ability to live it consciously rather than unconsciously. Gurudev's teaching harmonizes fate and freedom beautifully. Karma designs the body, awareness rewires the experience. Now, Gurudev concluded, now time to leave. How should seekers interpret this in the context of spiritual discipline? Jai Gurudev, it's both literal and symbolic. Gurudev often closes his courses with light humor, but it also reminds us that spiritual insight must be lived, not merely discussed. Time to live means go practice, meditate, and embody what you have heard. In the Upanishadic tradition, the Guru's silence at the end is a discourse. At the end of a discourse is the true teaching. After knowledge there comes absorption or nididhyasa. Gurudev's phrase signals that wisdom must descend from head to heart. The discourse ends, but sadhana begins. Now, Gurudev's reflection that we have plenty to work on right now can also refer to inner cleansing. How does the art of living path facilitate this purification? Through structured practices that integrate breath, sound, and awareness, Sudarshan Kriya cleanses the nadis, dissolves emotional residues, and restores the natural rhythm of prana. Meditation connects one to inner silence. Seva opens the heart. Gurudev calls this the threefold purification of body, mind, and spirit. From a Vedic lens, purification or Shuddhi is the first step before realization or jnana. The dharmic rituals of chanting, homa, and mantra have the same goal, the pranic purification. Gurudev has reintroduced these age old principles in a scientific, accessible way. When the vessel is clean, divine knowledge naturally flows in. Now, how does this discourse expand our understanding of you and the universe? This part completes a circle showing that the universe isn't out there, it's a reflection of your inner geometry. The asana body connects the individual and cosmic fields. When your inner vibration aligns with the universal rhythm, you experience oneness not intellectually but existentially. In the Rig Veda, it is said, Yat Pinde Tat Brahmande, what is within the microcosm is in the macrocosm. Gurudev brings this truth alive through practical spirituality. He reveals that self understanding is cosmic understanding. The you and the universe are not two, they are mirrors. Finally, how can modern seekers apply this profound teaching in daily life? By remembering that spirituality is not escape but engagement with awareness. Practice this daily sadhana, observe your breath, and treat each interaction as sacred. Gurudev often says, when you see the world as yourself, compassion flows naturally. Integrate this wisdom through simplicity, eat mindfully, speak truthfully, and serve selflessly. The asana body stabilizes when you live in dharmic rhythm. Wake, work, meditate, rest, and serve. Gurudev's discourse empowers modern humanity to rediscover the balance between science and spirit, identity and infinity. That's the true meaning and meeting of the you and the universe. Jai Gurudev.